You know, every once in a while, a voice just pops up from the internet that perfectly, and I mean perfectly, captures a feeling that's been simmering just under the surface for millions of us. Well, today's explainer is all about one of those voices. It's this raw, anonymous cry for change that gets right to the heart of things by asking a really simple but powerful question. Why are we even living like this? I mean, that sentence is a gut punch, right? It's not just about being tired of your job. It's about that feeling that the two halves of that sentence, working for a living and the world burns, they just shouldn't exist together. And yet for so many of us, that's just daily life. It feels like the basic deal we made with society has just been completely broke. So to really get what the author is saying here, you have to look at the world they're describing. It's a world that feels like it's constantly on fire, where the sheer weight of everything happening globally makes our normal, day-to-day routines feel, well, kind of absurd, almost like a performance. Yeah, exactly. If the world stage is hosting these massive, incredibly serious dramas, then our jobs can start to feel like a total sideshow. The author is basically saying that we're all just performing. We're playing the role of the good, focused employee while we're totally aware that on our phone screens, a much bigger, much more important story is happening every single second. And this gets to be impossible mental gymnastics we're all expected to do. We're supposed to see these insane headlines about global crises and then literally seconds later switch our brains to care deeply about, I don't know, a Q3 report. That constant switching, it's not just tiring. The source is saying it's actually eating away at us. It's corrosive. And that brings us right to the core of it all, the daily grind. It's this fundamental clash between our tiny micro tasks and these huge macro crises. It's that impossible balancing act between the immediate demands of a job and the immense, crushing weight of what's going on in the wider world. This is basically the split screen of our lives right now. On one channel, it's all about project management systems and pretending to care about corporate jargon. And then on the other channel, we're watching existential threats unfold in real time. The author's point is that trying to live on both of these channels at the same time is creating this deep, intense conflict inside of us. And that effort, man, it's exhausting. This isn't just a fleeting thought or a bad mood. What's being described here is a deep, soul-draining fatigue. The emotional energy it takes just to pretend to be engaged day after day while your real worries are somewhere else entirely, it's becoming totally unsustainable. Turns out, this feeling actually has a name: existential dissonance. It's that specific kind of mental stress you get when what you do every day feels completely and profoundly disconnected from what you actually value. And, just putting a name to it is powerful because it validates the feeling. It's not just you, it's a real recognized thing in our modern world. So then, this feeling of existential dissonance, it starts to grow into something much, much bigger. It evolves from, my job feels meaningless, to something more like, this entire system feels like it's holding back our human potential. It's a core belief that we as people were just made for more than this. And this is where that personal cry really zooms out and becomes a full-on critique of the system. The author connects their own burnout to this bigger picture of systemic inequality. They're framing the daily grind not as some kind of personal failure, but as the totally predictable result of a system where the rewards just feel completely unjustly stacked. So, okay, if the world feels chaotic and the system feels broken, how in the world do you get through the day? Well, this is where the author's tone kind of shifts. It gets more reflective and explores these little pockets of peace that people have to create for themselves just to survive. This becomes a survival strategy, really. When the big picture feels hopeless, the only thing you can do is shrink your world. The author talks about carving out these tiny spaces of personal meaning. Your hobbies, small moments with people you love, even just a good cup of coffee, to create a little sanctuary where you can just breathe. And what's really powerful here is the self-awareness. The author acknowledges their own privilege, but at the same time, they name this very specific, very modern condition: being house poor and just tired.
It shows this isn't about having the worst life ever. It's about a particular kind of exhaustion that can hit you even when, on paper, you've done everything you were supposed to do.
So, what happens when this deep, individual exhaustion stops being so individual? This is where the author's tone shifts again. It moves from that tired reflection to a much more urgent question about the breaking point. Like, when does all this personal pain become a collective problem that we have to face together?
This is the question that just hangs over this entire piece, and it's not rhetorical, it's a genuine challenge. The author is really asking us to think about whether this path we're on, where work feels empty and the world feels broken, is even sustainable. It implies that a system built on this much widespread existential dissonance just can't last forever. Something's gotta give.
And this is where the author takes the ultimate leap. They go from just describing the problem to imagining a pretty radical solution. The whole idea of a collective strike is about taking all that quiet, individual suffering and turning it into one single, loud, collective voice. It's this fantasy of just refusing, deciding not to play the game anymore. And so in the end, we're not left with an answer. We're left with that final, urgent question. It's a question that holds all the frustration, all the exhaustion, and all the desperate hope that we've just talked about. It's just left hanging there for all of us to think about. What is it going to take?